So I'm going to go ahead and give you a brief demonstration of the Access Control Manager or ACM product from Avigilon. I'm going to go ahead and log into our demo site here. Once I log in, you can see that my landing page brings me right into this monitor section here, which allows me to see the current activity in the system. So I've highlighted kind of my operator login, and you can see that this events section actually brings me into an area of the product where I can see all the activity that's going on. Operators log in, anybody makes a change on the system, people getting access grants and going through doors. So you can see this sort of live activity coming in on the all events queue. It's not ideal for monitoring for critical events in your system. So, typically where security operations personnel would do that would be in the alarms queue. So you can see that looking at our alarms queue, this is where critical alarm activity comes in, and you can get some of that color coded, like you see my door forced open on my server room comes in as red. The section is divided into an upper and lower section. The upper section is my unacknowledged alarms. The lower section is my acknowledged alarms. So if I wanted to take a couple of alarms here, for example, and I'll just kind of grab a few, acknowledge them, it's going to take them from the unacknowledged section up above and move them into the acknowledged section down below. At that point, if I wanted to, I could go ahead and clear all of them or clear them one at a time if I wanted to. These are all 100% permissions based, so if I did want to divide my system up so that a monitoring operator would have the ability to acknowledge alarm but not clear it. It requires a monitoring supervisor to clear it. I could go ahead and set my system up that way to do that. You could see in this column over here, that's the column that represents icons, that there's video associated to this event. There's also instructions associated to that force door. So an operator, as that comes in, can highlight that event, very quickly go up here, click the instructions section, read the instructions, dispatch my patrol to investigate, contact that shift supervisor, etc. So it goes ahead and tells them the things that they need to do. They can add notes to that alarm. As they go ahead and add notes to an alarm, it will go ahead and add another icon over here to let the monitoring supervisor know that my operators are putting notes into the alarm. And chronologically, as they go through, it will go ahead and list those notes chronologically, so that as a supervisor, I come back and look at the history of an event and have that pop up. As you can see, once an alarm comes into the system, we can automate it so that it immediately calls up the live video feed when the event occurs. So there's no interaction by the operator to have to go request a call up of the video. It will automatically pop up as that event occurs in the system. So if I wanted to take that video and look at say recorded video for it, I can highlight that event and say show me recorded video. It's going to go out, it's going to grab that recorded video and start streaming that back to me once I hit the start streaming button. So I'll then be able to pull up my recorded video and look at that as well. I can, again, do a bunch of processes with these buttons. Remember that the buttons are completely permissions based on the operator login. If I wanted to look at cameras in particular, any camera in my system, I could create a camera list that pops up as a map over here in the map section. In my case, I have a map called my headquarters map. And that I've placed my cameras in a variety of locations around that map, so I can call them up individually and look at individual cameras if I like. Or if I wanted to, I could, for example, someone's at my lobby door, call up my lobby door camera, see that they're out there by themselves and they're requesting, they forgot their badge, they're requesting to be let in. I can highlight this down here, click on my door and hit this grant button if I'm authorized to do so. If I'm not authorized, it'll say I'm not authorized to do that grant function. So you can also use this portion of the system to monitor alarms. This green bar down below represents alarm activity as well as the number above it. So for example, there's 7 alarms pending for this system. If I highlight or click on that number 7, it'll show me all the alarms associated to it and give me all those functions that I had in the alarms queue to do stuff as well, like acknowledge an alarm, call up a camera, look at recorded video, add notes, etc. So I could take this forced door, for example, and say I want to see what's going on live right now there. click on camera, and it'll pull up the live camera feed for that particular door and its event. So if I wanted to just look at my hardware status, I could pull up the hardware status screen. Now again, that green bar that you saw on the map represents this same green set of green buttons that you see here. Column 1 matches up to your bar down here, so that would be my comms failure column, the lock column, power, tamper, battery, and the last 2 ticks on that green bar are for forced doors and held doors. So if a door gets forced open or held open, it will go ahead and show as red on there. And you can see as activity happens where people are opening and closing the door for access grants, we'll say that that door status changed state from a closed state to an open state. You can also manage your system by, if I wanted to do a lockdown of, say, all my doors on the first floor, and I've set my first floor doors to start with 1-, I could hit that 1-, do a quick search, pulls up all my doors, and I can highlight this and say lock if I had permissions to do so. To give you an example of how I can sort in a larger system by door, so if we're using good naming conventions, I can go ahead and hit lobby search. It's only going to show me the things associated to the word lobby. So if things on my first floor are 1-, things on the second floor are 2-, I can just simply hit 2-, hit search, and it's just going to sort my list by anything that's associated to the second floor. At that point, I can hit that all button, lock it down, or if I'm unlocking it for an event, I can unlock it for an event, and so on. The identity section in the system, this is where we put people into the system. So there are some advanced search functions here as well as some quick search functions. The advanced search allows me to pick specific fields that I want to search on, maybe particular status. So if there's anything like maybe I wanted to search on a role, I want to see all the people that have the admin role. If I go ahead and search that, it'll show me who has that. If I wanted to if I created identity groups, which I have done in my system, I can do quick searches by my identity groups. So for example, I want to see all the people that are on my sales team. So I just go ahead and grab that list, and I can pull up any individual on that team and look at their status, look at their information. And if I'm, if I have the right permissions as an administrator, I could, let's say we deactivated or terminated this employee, I can go ahead and mark them as terminated. It'll disable all their physical access, all their administrative access, if they had any, to the access control manager. As I said earlier, this is a roles-based system, so we can assign roles to individuals. So Clara has a role that gives her administrative rights. She also has access to all doors 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So unlike other systems where you might put a user in and give them user permissions as rights and then go add them as a cardholder record and give them physical access, in our system we just add the identity once and then define through role assignment what they can do and where they can go. Tokens are badges for us, so this is where we go ahead and add our tokens or badges to the system. We can also look at a person's access. What does 24/7 access give Clara access to? If we wanted to capture or import a photo for her badge, we can go ahead and import photos and upload them from files. We can look at Clara's badge. If we wanted to print her a badge, we could come in here and simply say print badge. And if we wanted to check her current transactional information, where's Clara been going the last several days, we can go in here and look at her transactional data. If we create custom user-defined fields in our system, that's where we would go in and see something, maybe a tab like I've put in here called additional info, additional identity info. So if there's information you need to collect that we don't provide fields for, it's very easily done. You can go ahead and add your own user-defined fields to the system to do that. The reports tab, this is where we run reports on our system. Right, so there's about 27 canned reports in the system. The majority of those reports will give you system configuration information. For example, my area report, if I ran that, would show me a list of all my areas and their configurations. My holiday report, a list of all my holidays and how they're configured. Most common reports that people use are the audit log reports, right? To see where an operator has been, what they've been doing, make sure they're not doing things they're not supposed to do. And then this transaction report where I can pull open that report and define, I want to see where people are going, who's been in and out of a particular door, or, I want to see all the forced doors as well for a particular event. You can either, once you set the criteria, you can go ahead and do a quick run of the report, or you can save those changes and you can go down like this down to the bottom and run it as a PDF or as an Excel spreadsheet. So if I click on the PDF button, it's going to go ahead and compile the report based on my search criteria. And then it's going to pull it up for me, so I can either save that to a file and email to an individual, or if I just want to do a quick view of it, I can pull up that report and do a quick view as well. If I wanted to, I could make a copy of that transactional report. So let's say that's the report for the second floor or third floor, and that manager wants that report every Monday morning. I want to know who came and went from all my doors on the third floor every Monday morning. I could go ahead and save a copy of that report, set that report to give me automatically the last 7 days of activity, and then subsequently schedule that report to run weekly every Monday morning at 8 a.m. and automatically email that report to that manager on the second or third or fourth floor. So we can automate that as well. Makes it a lot easier for those that request monthly, weekly type of reports. The physical access section of the product, this is where you do a lot of system configuration. This is where we add doors to the system, where we add panels to the system. It also gives us that capability to do things like create global actions and linkages that will do customized lockdown procedures, right? For example, the receptionist on the third floor hits the panic button. It locks down the lobby doors, it locks down the third floor, and at the same time allows access for first responders to get through. So global actions and linkages is a very powerful portion of the product. We can set our card formats. Any custom end-of-line resistance values can be done in this section as well. As we said earlier, this is a roles-based system, so the roles section is where we go to build those physical access roles and logical access roles that give people permissions to get into the access control manager. We can also create very quick, simple lockdown policies, right? So in the policy section, I've created a couple of policies here that if I implement them, they immediately lock down my, my facility and secure all my doors. I can create those groups. As I did earlier, I had those ID groups where I've sorted identities out in groups. So the group section allows me to sort identity information. I can partition my system out in the roles section. So for example, again, using sort of a high-rise building scenario, or even a campus-wide, building 1, building 2, headquarters. I can say that, if I put a person into the building 1 partition, that's the person who's required to manage that building. When they log into their partition, they will only see their doors, their panels, their roles that pertain to their particular building. We can even partition out the people associated to building 1. So it does give us the capability to really take the whole system and then just narrow it down to those partition administrators only seeing their stuff. Up here in the upper right, we have some different sections of the product. The appliance section is where we would do a lot of initial configuration, maybe some software updates. This is also where we could set our IP address, maybe run some backups if we're doing a backup of the system. So we can do this backup, and we can back up the system configuration as well as all transactions. We can back it up to an SCP, a Windows share, or even to a USB hard drive or thumb drive. Software updates, real easy to do. Every time we have a software update, we notify our channel partners that there's a software update out there. We give them an FTP site to go and download it from. They can pass that information on to the end user and have the end user download it and deploy it when they feel the need to do so. But it's real simple. You download the upgrade script. Once it's downloaded to whatever computer or device you're on, you upload it to the appliance. Once it's on the appliance itself, you launch it. It does the upgrade. Typical upgrades take anywhere from 3 to 10 minutes. Depending on the size and scope of the upgrade. It will include a reboot of the appliance. When it's all done, everybody that logs in from that point forward using their browser will have the latest and greatest release of the software. Just to give you kind of an idea of the power of that, most upgrades on traditional access control systems require kind of a well orchestrated and planned out event in that I'm going to upgrade the server, then go touch each one of my clients and upload new software on each client. On our side, it's a simple upgrade to the appliance itself, and then we're done. I've done the last 12 upgrades to our demo server in Sterling, Virginia, remotely from my my home office in North Carolina. Didn't have to get in a truck, didn't have to travel out there. Did all of them remotely. As a matter of fact, did an upgrade fairly recently for another customer in Hawaii, straight from my desk in North Carolina. The settings section, this is where we kind of go to set all the default sort of configuration settings, things like schedules or our holidays in the system. So any time schedules are associating to doors or access level rights and so forth. Badge designer, that's where we go to create the badges. That badge that you saw me show earlier, this is where I created the template. So you can have a variety of templates in there, maybe one for contractor, one for visitor, one for employee. And then, external systems, that's where we do our video integration. And then the maps section is where we do set up and configure those maps that I was showing in the maps section. Collaborations, very powerful portion of our product. This is where we can do sort of collaborative imports from third-party systems like a SQL database, an LDAP database, or Active Directory, an Oracle database. We can also do CSV imports. This is all for identity pull purposes. So we can pull identity information from these third-party database sources and bring them in and continually, on a continuous basis, update and make changes to it through synchronization with those other databases. We can also do things like transactional pushes. So if we needed to push our transactional data out to other third-party systems that wanted to listen for that data, like for example, we can push the data out as XML or syslog, for example. So those third-party systems could listen for our transactional data and enunciate it on their system. And then lastly, we have an API tool set that is part of our collaborations. All of our commands in our product are written using REST commands, and that REST interface or REST API interface that we've written allows third-party systems to interface with our product using the API tool set. So you can see that the Avigilon Access Control Manager provides a simple, easy-to-use interface on a browser-based platform that provides the flexibility that most security professionals need today to manage their people, their property, and their assets.